If you've ever wondered about solvents and mediums and how they affect oil paint, then this video is for you. There are a variety of products available that affect an oil paint's consistency, texture, drying time, and even gloss. Today I'm going to demonstrate a solvent and 3 different mediums. I've got terpenoid, liquid original, linseed oil, and liquid fine detail. And I'm going to mix each of those in with a splotch of dioxazine purple paint and swirl it around so you can get a sense of how each one affects the paint. First, I'd like to talk about some differences between solvents and mediums. When you think of solvents, think of paint thinners, and you might think that hardware stores sell paint thinners, and you'd be right. But those are not products that are specially designed for artists. So I'd encourage you to choose a paint thinner, a solvent that is designed for artists. These are available at art supply stores or online. Just look for something that mentions that it is an odorless thinner for artist oil colors. And that way you'll know that you'll be getting a product that will be the safest product for you and will suit your needs as a painter. While solvents are intended to evaporate once the oil paint dries, mediums are products that become one with the paint, and so they will remain with the painting and not so much evaporate. And it's also good to be aware of differences between mediums. So you'll want to read the packaging before you use any of these products so you know what you're getting. For instance, linseed oil says that it slows down drying time, whereas liquid original, which is another medium, it actually says that it speeds up the drying time. There can also be differences in how they affect the consistency or the flow of paint or the gloss. So these are all things to be aware of. So reading the bottle is an important part of using mediums or solvents successfully. So I poured a little bit of each of these products that I'm using into a little plastic cup. And I'm going to demonstrate what happens when we add each of those to a little splotch of dioxazine purple paint. So I'm going to start here with terpenoid. This is a solvent. So this, remember, is a paint thinner. So I'm going to pick up some of that with my brush. And then I'm just going to stir that in. And you can see right away that it's really making the paint very watery, very fluid. It almost starts to behave like a watercolor. And in fact, the more of the terpenoid or odorless mineral spirit that I add, the more water-like it becomes. You can see it's become very transparent, so I can kind of see through the paint. I'm going to clean my brush quickly here. And then I'm going to move on to linseed oil. And linseed oil is actually the product that I often use the most when I'm needing something to thin any paint. And it kind of just looks like a vegetable oil. So I'm going to get a few drips of that on my brush. And you can see that it also makes the oil paint runnier, more fluid. But it's actually just like adding some oil, whereas terpenoid, even though it's not water, it functions, it looks as though you've added water to paint and diluted it. Linseed oil just looks like I've added more oil to the paint. And so it still has kind of a thickish consistency, even though it's become very spreadable. So I do like linseed oil a lot because it is an all-natural product. It's virtually odorless, and it's a product that's already in my oil paints to begin with, so I feel like it's already something that I'm using. I don't feel like I'm really adding anything else that I'm possibly getting exposed to for like toxicity reasons. This one here is liquid fine detail, and it functions a lot like the linseed oil. It also looks like a vegetable oil product, but the liquid fine detail is a petroleum distillate product, so it does have some cautions on it, and it smells a little bit. So if you're using any of these petroleum-based product, mineral spirit products, like any of the liquids or the terpenoid, you want to make sure that you have some good ventilation because they are smelly and those fumes aren't always good for you. Also, just as a note, if you get it on your hands, it's a good thing to wash your hands. It's just common sense. You can see that the way the liquid is affecting the paint, it looks much like how the linseed oil affects the paint. It's very smooth, very flowy, very fluid, but it also kind of looks like you've added almost an oily consistency to the paint, contrasted with the terpenoid solvent that has already really dried. That's dried very quickly, and given, I guess it's just got a little bit on my finger, but it's pretty well dry, certainly not smearing. Then we're going to add the liquid original, which this product, it looks more like a paste, if you can see it in there. Looks more like a gum or just a blob, so to speak. So I'm going to add that blob in to the paint and stir it around. And I'm really kind of adding some extra texture. So this is good if you're doing like impasto style painting and you really want very, very thick texture. Now, I personally am a thick textured painter, but I really don't use this product. I just use a lot of oil paint. But I do know a lot of painters who like to add something to their paint. Kind of makes their paint go a little bit farther. You can see that there's some good rounded texture of the paint that has just a full body. You know, you can scoop it up, whereas these other ones just kind of spread. But this becomes like more of a three-dimensional product that is very thick where the liquid has accumulated. Another great use for solvents is that they can be used to clean brushes. So a product like Turpenoid is a paint thinner, but it's also a brush cleaner. So when you have paint that's accumulated on your brush, you can pour some Turpenoid into an empty mason jar, such as this. This one is red because I already cleaned a brush that had some red paint on it, but you can pour some Turpenoid into a jar, stick your brush in there, swirl it around, wipe it clean with a paper towel, and then repeat that process. You can even leave the brushes in the Turpenoid overnight if you need to. And then when you take them out, you can wipe them clean and you'll see that your brush has gotten quite a bit of the paint out of the bristles. When you have some colorful Turpenoid remaining in the jar, you can just leave it sit for a while, and that could be days, that could even be weeks, but eventually the sludge, the stuff that makes the color, the pigment, that's all going to settle at the bottom of the jar, and you can scoop that out with a spoon and you'll have a clearer, maybe not perfectly clear, but a clearer Turpenoid layer that remains. And so that can be reused and reused and reused quite a few times actually before you need to throw it away. And speaking of disposal, it's not a product that you want to dump down your kitchen sink. Even though it looks like a liquid, it is an odorless mineral spirit, and so there are some rules, especially in certain communities, about how you can dispose a product like this. There may be a recycling center or drop-off place that you can drop off hazardous chemicals. Alternatively, you can just seal it with the lid and possibly throw it in your trash can. You could unscrew it and let the Turpenoid evaporate and then leaves the sludge behind, and then you can throw it away. If you do have the lid off, though, you do always want to be cautious because Turpenoid, like many of these other products, can be flammable. And so you want to be cautious that you're not near any open flame while you're using it or just leaving it to sit and evaporate. It's worth noting that there are different brand names for similar products to what I've shown you today. These just represent the brands and the products that I personally own. But it's important that you read the jars, read the bottles, and see what is what. Know that if you're working with a solvent or a medium, and maybe even spend some time just attaching some cardstock to a clipboard just like this, and then just mix a medium or a solvent in with some paint and see how it works for you. I think exploration and just playing with paint is really helpful in developing your artistic intelligence, and so that might be something that helps you decide what products you like to use in your own painting. If you have any other tips or tricks or questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.